Girl, you make me go so loco, loco, make me go crazy. We would make a beautiful baby. Knock on wood, is you trying to date me? Is it?
How are you, my wonderful brads? How are you doing this beautiful month of love? How is your somebody? And if you don't have somebody, don't worry. You have me and yourself. I'm sending so much love to you right now, and I hope you're loving yourself because ain't no better love than self-love. It is me, Bradley, your host, the white polar bear flow colder than frost, hailing from the southwest of KE, all the way up in Eldo City. On this episode, we'll be covering the topic social anxiety and my ongoing journey with it. Underline ongoing. What drives me to be on here, doing whatever I do, sharing these stories with you, is because I long to build a community of bros like me who resonate with my journey, those niggas who ain't afraid to be soft, love themselves mentally and spiritually, taking care of themselves. If you believe in this, be sure to show your support by following this podcast on Spotify. That is Blue Block Podcast. You could also find it on YouTube under the channel. This is Bradley, Bradly, no E's. And let's jump into it. My social life hasn't been one of the most smoothest ride. I could remember a lot of relationships that I had being tied to an expiration date. Like, when will nursery expire? Then, those relationships are over. Moving on to primary, when will primary expire? Then, those relationships too are over. Especially in primary. That's when I really came to the realization of this phenomena. So coming on to high school, I knew high school will end, and those relationships that I'll have built during that time will also expire. I had gotten the pattern. My mind had grasped around this idea. You see how in a normal setting as a kid, you have neighbors, you have other kids from the same hood who you can play with. I totally had a bunch of them even. But some came, some went. What I didn't have in me was the grace of going out to play with them. I normally used to stay in, and a part of me was pre-exposed to a very mature living. So much so that I saw the things that children of my age were doing as childish. The irony. You sit in your house and you're like, just because I'm used to a very much kind of like mature environment, I know this is how I'm supposed to act. And so when I see other people who are actually my age, it turns to me and it flips that switch why are y'all behaving so childish in a sense? This really impacted me, giving me the legacy of introversion all through my younger years. So at this point, forgive me if I'm antisocial. I found out that I missed out on a lot of things. I never been to a sleepover. I never learned how to ride a bike. Just normal childish stuff. I was never that sporty. I was too busy trying to play grown up. Granted that the only time you'd ever see me getting out the house was only in very rare occasions. You'd only see me out if I'm going out on an errand, maybe to a shop or going to church. Those were the only two cases that Bradley was gonna get out of the house at his own liberty. Otherwise, he is not. He is not getting out to see the sunlight. Believe you me. Speaking of church, my lack of not getting on well with other kids just from the jump made me isolate in a sense. I was always by my mom who was in the choir, just continuing a streak of surrounding myself with a very mature audience, and the audience having like a very huge kind of impact and influence in my character and the way that I kind of uphold myself. But I'm glad to say that I found another kid who was, at that choir section who sat with me. And unfortunately, I cannot say that this saved me because, to be honest, we were kind of far apart in terms of age, not too far, but just far enough that as I've seen the way our relationship has grown over the years, I felt that we've gotten to like points where I'd feel like very estranged to him. I went to Sabbath school. I used to hang around him. We used to just hang out together, but necessarily I didn't fit in with like the general kind of aspect of, most of the children that are in your church and stuff like that. I was taken around to like very many meetings. Yeah, there's this adage like if you're African, if you come from a certain part of Africa, you'd know this. The idea of like kibeti ya mama, where in a sense, I was the last born, and this phrase actually means that my mom used to carry me around like everywhere. Bro, I used to go to meetings. I used to go to like all her chamas and stuff. Like that was the norm. And all in all, I kind of caught wind of feeling overpressured at some points where you'd find in these settings it was just like me, the child who was carried on, who couldn't like stay at home alone, so I was carried on by my mom. And so I get to this setting where necessarily like all this are peers of my mother, so like they're all the same age and they kind of relate well. And when you're there, I don't know if like y'all have ever experienced this, but like it's always that kind of auntie friends of your like your mom or your dad who are always like, on those questions like, oh, you've grown so much, how's school, da 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 da, yeah, da da. And I don't know, for me it was kind of like overpressuring because most of the time I was like, yo, I'm just the guy, I'm just the kid who like stays inside my room. Guys, I don't know how to navigate this. And you'd find like there were cases where it was just me, like I was the only child in the whole setting, so I had to keep myself busy. So being in like when they're discussing their stuff, I'm just there kind of very lost in a sense, you understand? And even if like by any chance you'd have other like age mates who are kind of my age in that setting, it was very hard to navigate that because from the jump I didn't know how to necessarily like make friends or like be out here, socializing in such a sense. So with all this pressure, I started receding into my own bubble, and it was hard to navigate these relationships. I was too busy to get out the house. I was probably too mature. I was like over that. I was just, that's not for me because you know what? I probably think I know better. This was the impressions that were inside my mind during the time as I'm navigating all of this. If we speak of a school setting, in those primary years, I had no choice but to start relating with people. Because, believe you me, 8 years in a school and now no friends, that's really hard. So my character kind of shifted during like in this setting, and I actually got to open up even more, but I still felt in a way there was no remedy for the idea that I only had friends at school, and after school it was all over. To be honest, no one in my school necessarily lived near me, and even if they did, clever me, I wouldn't get out the house. I wouldn't get out of my precious bubble to go and meet them, to go and actually like socialize with them, just interact with them in a sense. So I spent a lot of back and forth with the idea of like, okay, when will schools open, or when is gonna be the next term, so I can, get back to, talking to people my age and like relating in that kind of class setting. Although I'd say the way it impacted my character in me opening up in this, I'd say, how do I term this? Me opening up with, like, in relation to the idea that we are all in this one school and we are all sharing this experience of like 8 years. I found that I started basing my essence self on the relationships that I had. So basically, I had never, had gone within myself and realized who I actually was. So in me, like, I just want you to be my friend. I just want us to, I was all that. I was, you and me in this friendship. That was my necessarily like my everything. And I'd probably make a whole other episode to kind of go deeper on this subject. But as of now, that's where I'd like to like put it. Even still, primary school had to end, and I was shown that most of the relationships I built, it was just it was tied to it because primary ended and none of those people actually lived near me, and so it was kind of far, and I would never have like pushed myself to the extent of getting out my bubble and going out there and building relationships with them. You understand? So here I am, 2018, post post end of, what do you call this, end of like primary, and I'm just, I don't know, I was like, you see the New Year's Eve, of 2018 getting into 2019, bro. I was crashing out. I flipped, bro. I genuinely I was going off on everybody. Like, that transition for me wasn't necessarily like the smoothest, because I felt so betrayed. And in hindsight, this was just like, I hadn't like found the clarity at that point. It was just like I was just crashing out, and I went out and like really, really, really burnt a lot of bridges. I, in a way, catapulted myself way, way deeper into the bubble that I had built for myself. This was the first time where I kind of got into the tradition of creating personalities for myself. That kind of interaction bore the personality Hali Otieno, you understand? It bore that persona in a sense during this time. And what was funny is, like, you all know me as Bradley, but I've been through like a lot of personas too, to like finally found base within the idea that is Bradley, and this is when like I'm supposed to turn a new page, and embark on a journey called high school. I'm glad to say that for high school, necessarily, like, music just came into my life and was my guardian angel. Like, music has been there in my life like a form way, 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 way back. But the way it impacted me during high school was just at a whole other level. Need I say, it actually helped me make friends. Friends who even now, like in the setting that we met each other, friends who are from far and wide, or like all over the country. I had nicks from like Mombasa, Nairobi, and Bay, man, I'm just that little old boy from like Kimumu, bro, from Eldo City. You feel me? Going through nursery, going through primary, I took the hint that, okay, they'll only be my friends when we are at school, so I gotta wait until the next term for like our friendship to continue. This was always the norm for me, you understand? Me longing like within those breaks between term to term, me longing for the idea of just getting back to school and being able to relate with people that are in my age. We even like more close together because we're secluded for a period of time in this land, and we share a lot of our weekends, we share a lot of our weekdays together. I always used to, like, at the opening of the term, I always used to marvel at their stories of how their lives went, how much they actually got to do, all the interactions they shared, their past holidays. To me, it was like wonderful, seeing all of this, seeing them kind of getting to live out their best life, knowing that little old me was just very snug in his bubble and rarely even saw sunlight. Then coronavirus sweeps the world and it plunges me into the darkest age of my life that I have ever been through this existence. My social anxiety peaked at this point. It really did. I used to walk out of rooms filled with too many people, and that room could be our own living room. I felt weird at church, congregating with all those people who, guess what, I actually knew since I was a kid. I mean, things to do like handshakes and simple salutations were a lot for me. It was really, really, really heavy. Like, I used to break a sweat just trying to formulate a sense of like, hi, how are you? I'm like, good. Bro, I was shaking to my boots at that time. Not gonna lie, there was even this one time, I went to a youth meeting in church, and bro, like, and I don't know, but anyway, I mean, if you've ever been in such a setting, they always have the adage of kind of, everyone getting up and introducing themselves. So people are just like going down, and I'm like, yo, so you mean there are 4 people and then it's my turn? I'm not, bro. My heart at the point is racing. I am sweating. I honestly felt like I could not breathe. I felt so overwhelmed. I ran out of there as fast as I can, just so I could sit by myself and breathe again till it was over. I went through a lot of like radical shifts during this like dark age, and that's when I actually started the journey of actually loving myself and caring about myself. That's why I can now speak about this and share all of these experiences and the journeys that I've been through. I know you're probably expecting a happy ending. I don't know how to say this. True, I implemented a lot of, very crucial values, systems in my life ever since to kind of help me to get to the point where I am, to get myself out of that kind of pit to a point where I'm actually walking towards something beautiful and something great, a way that I can relate with myself that is more peaceful, more loving, and more caring. But the social anxiety, bruh, it never left me. I still get overwhelmed when I'm in a line. Like, well, you see, where I'm from, our public transport ain't that great. So you find that sometimes you have to like wait in lines to actually, get inside the bus. Like, so niko kwa line, naongojea matatu, and there's like 30 people crammed up in one space. And those sidewalks venye zinakuanga, bro, fam, I can't. Like, being in such a space, I genuinely can't. Sorry to say this, but I started to grow hatred for people getting all up in my personal space. I mean, bro, just give me 5 inches. Honestly speaking, give me 5 inches. I know that we exist in this world and you're on your own thing, trying to do whatever you're doing and I'm trying to do whatever I'm doing, but please just don't step up in my space. Bro, I hate it. I genuinely hate it when someone is in my personal space and like our body parts are touching. Like, why? Yeah? And especially strangers, I hate that so bad. I am still very uncomfortable in like social spaces and humans. Bro, you see humans just looking at you, and that you could, and I could tell by those eyes, you're just like, oh, what is wrong with that guy? Why is he that withdrawn from like the social space? Yeah, but I don't know, I've been through a lot, and I'm not trying to explain that to anyone or like prove that to anyone, you understand? But I believe we shall heal, and do not worry. This is like probably the most depressing episode I've done yet. Don't be sorry for me. It's life.
Girl, you make me go so loco, make me go crazy. We would make a beautiful baby. Knock on wood, is you trying to date me? Is it yes, is it no?